Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into how you can transform your English learning. We're looking specifically at using podcasts.
That's right. We've got this guide specifically for English learners, and we're pulling out the really impactful strategies. The goal here is turning that time you might just be passively listening into, active skill building time, giving you a clear path, actionable steps for real progress.
Tangible progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't just theory. It's stuff you can actually do today.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Why podcasts? I mean, what makes them so good for learning English according to this source?
Right. So the guide gives 4 pretty compelling reasons. First one, natural, real English. You're hearing how people actually talk. You get the slang, the idioms, linking sounds, connected speech, how words just naturally blend together.
Stuff you don't always get in textbooks.
Often missing entirely, yeah. It's a real deal. Second reason, they're just so convenient and flexible.
The practicality.
Totally. Listen on the bus, walking, at the gym, cooking. You turn that non-learning time into, learning time. Any place could be your classroom, sort of.
Yeah, making use of those gaps in the day. I like that.
Third, it's about contextual vocabulary.
Yeah.
You hear new words, new phrases, but in the middle of a real conversation.
So you see how they're actually used.
Exactly. And hearing them in context makes them way easier to remember, and you understand how to use them yourself, not just memorizing lists.
Right, not just abstract definitions.
Precisely. And finally, number 4, it directly improves pronunciation and listening. Just listening consistently trains your ear. You start picking up the rhythm, the stress, the intonation, all those subtle sounds of English. The more you hear natural speech, the better you get at both understanding it and producing it yourself.
Okay, so podcasts are clearly powerful tools, but here's the key thing this resource keeps emphasizing, right? The real progress. It comes from active engagement, not just letting it play.
Yes, they make a really clear distinction. There's passive listening. That's, having a podcast on while you're doing something else, maybe driving, scrolling social media. Your mind isn't fully there. You might pick up some familiarity with the sounds, maybe a word here or there, but the deep learning, it's limited.
And that's the crucial difference. So this is where it gets really practical. How does the guide say we should practice active listening? What are the actual steps?
Okay, so they lay out a clear sequence. First step, pretty basic, choose an episode that actually matches your current level. Don't jump into something super complex right away.
Start where you are. Makes sense.
Exactly. Then you listen to just small chunks, manageable sections, maybe only say 1 to 3 minutes at a time, but listen really intently.
Okay, short bursts. And what are you doing during that minute or two?
All right, this is the active part. While you're listening closely, jot down any new words or interesting phrases, things that catch your ear.
Writing things down.
Yeah, and pay attention not just to single words, but how they fit together. Then, and this is really key, repeat some of those phrases out loud.
Actually saying them.
Yes. Try to mimic the speaker.
Yeah.
Get the tone, the rhythm, the speed, as close as you can. It's not just hearing, it's physically practicing the sounds.
That sounds like it connects listening and speaking directly, building that muscle memory.
It really does.
Yeah.
Then, after you've tried saying them, check the pronunciation, check the meaning, use a dictionary, look it up online, make sure you actually understand what you noted down.
Okay, verify and understand.
Yeah.
And the guide mentions going back to the same material.
Yes, that's a really effective step. Listen to that same episode, or even just the same short section, again after a few days.
Why again?
Because you'll be amazed how much more you understand the second time after you've actively worked with it. You catch things you missed. So this whole cycle, listen, note things down, practice saying them, check them, then review by listening again. That's how you really train your ear, boost your vocabulary, and start speaking more naturally. It's just a much more efficient way to learn than, just having it on in the background.
That whole framework, it just makes so much sense, turning passive input into really active practice. And speaking of vocabulary, this guide highlights some specific words you often run into in real English, words you can learn really well this way, in context. Should we look at a few they pointed out?
Yeah, definitely. They list 5 useful words, giving the meaning and the example sentences exactly as they appear in the source material. So first up is intricate.
Intricate.
Meaning complicated, detailed, often in a kind of delicate or complex way. The example they give is, the novel has an intricate plot with multiple timelines. And another one, that was such an intricate plan. I'm impressed. You see how the context really shows the complexity?
Yeah, definitely more than just complicated. Okay, what's the next one?
Predominantly.
Predominantly.
Meaning, mainly or mostly. The guide's example. The podcast is predominantly about mental health and productivity. Or another way to see it. My English vocabulary comes predominantly from books and podcasts. It just shows the main source or focus.
Right. Predominantly. That's a good one. Third word.
Articulate, meaning being able to express your ideas, your feelings clearly, fluently.
Articulate.
The example is, she's very articulate. She speaks with confidence and clarity. And maybe a goal for a learner. I want to be able to articulate my thoughts in English. It really describes that skill,
Yeah.
Clear communication.
That's a fantastic goal, absolutely. Fourth word.
Tangible, meaning real, clear, something you can almost touch or definitely measure.
Tangible, like tangible results.
Exactly. The guide gives this example. I saw tangible progress in my speaking after a month of shadowing. And another, learning vocabulary through context creates tangible results. It's about those results you can actually see or feel.
Tangible progress. That's what everyone wants from you.
Okay, and the last one they highlighted.
Nuance. Meaning. A subtle difference. Could be in meaning, could be in tone.
Nuance.
Yeah, the guide's example sentence. Understanding the nuance of words is key to fluency. And another. Podcasts help me learn the nuance of real English. It's about those little subtle distinctions that make a big difference.
Those 5 words really show how listening to real English gives you so much more than just a definition, don't they?
They really do.
And the guide actually suggests, pausing right now maybe and trying to use 1 or 2 of those words yourself, just in your head or out loud. Start making them active. Give it a shot.
Yeah, try it out. And beyond those core active listening steps, the guide also offers some really practical tips to accelerate your learning with podcasts, ways to boost the basic process. Okay, accelerator tips. I like the sound of that. What are they? The guide listed 5 specific ones, I think.
That's right, 5. First, they really push this. Repeat the same episode multiple times.
Don't just listen once and move on.
Exactly. Don't do that. The first time, maybe you understand, say, 60%. Second time, maybe it's 80%. Each listen helps you catch more those nuances, specific phrases, solidify words you weren't sure about.
Right, you peel back layers with each listen. Makes sense. Tip number 2.
Focus on 1 goal per episode. This is important. Trying to catch every single new word, every pronunciation detail, and all the grammar in 1 listen is just too much.
Overwhelming.
Totally. So the guide says pick 1 target. Like, okay, listen, I'm just focusing on phrasal verbs. Or maybe I'm going to listen for linking sounds between words. Or even simpler, I'll just write down 5 new words.
So you're not trying to boil the ocean every time. Smart. Okay, tip 3.
Use the transcript, if there is one.
Reading along.
Yeah, reading while you listen is incredibly helpful. The guide points out you can highlight phrases, see how words are spelled. It reinforces the learning and clarifies anything you misheard.
That visual input alongside the audio, that must make a difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay, tip 4 is speak what you hear.
Speak what you hear.
Yeah. When you hear a sentence or even just a phrase you like the sound of, pause the podcast. Then repeat it out loud. Try to match the speaker's exact tone, their intonation, the rhythm.
Like mimicking them?
Exactly. It's very similar to a technique called shadowing, where you try to speak almost at the same time, just slightly behind the speaker. It's powerful for building fluency, for getting that muscle memory going for natural speech.
Okay, pausing, repeating, mimicking. Got it. And the final tip, number 5.
Talk back to the podcast.
Talk back.
Yeah. I mean, if the host asks a question in the podcast, don't just think the answer. Say it out loud. If they make a point, quickly say if you agree or disagree or add a quick thought of your own.
So engaging like you're actually in the conversation.
Precisely. It makes it so much more active. You're not just a passive audience member. You're participating, even if just with yourself.
That really brings the whole active concept home. Okay, so those are some great tips. Now, for people wondering, where do I find these podcasts? Does the guide suggest any specific ones?
It does, yeah. It gives recommendations for both podcasts specifically for learners and also native level podcasts.
Okay. What about the ones designed for English learners?
So for learners, they list. Luke's English podcast mentions it's great for natural British English. It's funny, covers lots of topics. Then the English we speak from the BBC short episodes really focused on idioms and current expressions.
Mm-hmm.
Also, All Ears English, which focuses more on American English, cultural stuff, and practical conversation skills. And Speak Better English with Harry, which is apparently good for vocabulary building and understanding grammar points.
That's a good starting list. And what about for learners who are maybe a bit more advanced, say B2, C1 level, looking for native content?
Right, for that level, the guide suggests things like the Daily from the New York Times.
Yeah.
Great for current events. You get some higher level vocabulary there.
Okay.
Then Diary of a CEO, which is a popular British podcast. Lots of natural, fluent conversation about business, mindset, that kind of thing. Not overthinking, which is just described as casual, thoughtful conversations.
Yeah.
Again, with pretty advanced vocabulary and stuff you should know.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
It's great for general knowledge, right? And just exposure to a really wide range of everyday English on all sorts of topics.
And it's probably worth repeating what the guide says here with these native podcasts, especially when you're starting. You don't need to understand every single word, right?
Absolutely not. Don't stress about that. The exposure itself, just hearing the flow, the speed, the rhythm, is incredibly valuable for training your ear.
So all these steps, these active listening techniques, the tips, the resources, they all seem to circle back to a core message from the guide, a kind of encouragement.
Yeah, there's a really powerful takeaway.
What is that overarching message for the listener?
The big message is that fluency. It isn't some far-off destination you just suddenly arrive at. It's something you are building right now. You build it bit by bit, day by day, word by word. And it happens through this kind of consistent active engagement we've been talking about. The guide really emphasizes making English part of your daily routine, viewing it as something you live, not just something you sit down to study now and then. Every time you do an active listening session, every word you practice saying, every sentence you repeat out loud, that's contributing to you becoming more fluent right here, right now.
That really reframes it, doesn't it? It takes the pressure off needing to be perfect immediately.
Exactly.
It's not about waiting until you have a perfect accent or flawless grammar. It's about the consistency, the courage to just try, and using smart strategies like the ones from this guide to help you along.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating when you look at it laid out like this is how these small, consistent actions, the things outlined in the source, they really do compound. They build on each other to create that real, tangible progress over time.
Absolutely. Well, that feels like a good place to wrap up this deep dive into mastering English through podcast listening.
It does. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from all this. If fluency really is built bit by bit, day by day, word by word through active engagement, what's one concrete step, just one tangible thing that you could take today, pulling directly from these strategies we've unpacked to make English just a little bit more a part of what you live?